Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare
Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare
Srila Prabhupada ki Gaur Premanandi. There's a machine that's singing. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutade Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare. Up somehow. That's much better. Teachings of Prahlad Maharaj Part 2. Before we begin Part 2, I thought I would do two things. Shh. One is just a little bit on the life of Ramanujacharya, because today is his appearance day. Ramanujacharya has a role like Madhvacharya, Nimbarkacharya, and Vishnu Swami as being the leading person in that each of those four sampradayas. Leading person in the sense that the main function, many things, but their main function was taking already existing teachings and then systematizing those teachings in some kind of structured, ordered presentation. And so prior to Ramanujacharya, there were the Alvars and other great teachers, and he performed the function on behalf of the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, to take all those teachings and put them together in a comprehensive fashion. And to this day, it's guiding the lives of many thousands, hundreds of thousands of persons to lead a life of devotion to the personality of Godhead. So, very important service, very powerful personality. His name, Rama Anuja. Rama Anuja. It said this is the name that he was given at his time of birth, but it means that he was another name of Lakshmana, who was the younger brother of Lord Ram, who was a follower of Ram. So he's a follower of Ram. In the Sri Sampradaya, they commonly say that he was an incarnation of Lakshmana. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that he was an incarnation of Ananta Shesh, or Ananta, or a Shakti of Ananta, bearing the Shakti of Ananta. So, from the very beginning, of course, there was a seemingly ordinary beginning, seemingly ordinary meaning not a Vaishnava beginning because of his parents and the circumstances. He was next in line, following behind Sri Yamunacharya. Prabhupada likes to quote some of the writings of Yamunacharya. And the two actually never had direct association. He didn't receive mantra, he didn't receive teachings. There was no direct association. teachings in the form of what Ramanujacharya wrote, yes, but otherwise no direct contact. There was a detail, nice detail, that Ramanujacharya was going to pay his respects to Yamunacharya, and by the time he reached there, he had left his body. And when he saw the form of Yamunacharya lying there, something very unusual was manifest. There are 3 of his fingers that were not extended. And Ramanujacharya asked, is that normal? And they said, no, it's normal. His hand was out. So he recited, this is according to the histories, the 3 main functions that Yamunacharya wanted Ramanujacharya to fulfill, and he did. So Ramanujacharya spoke the first one. Remaining fixed in devotion to Lord Vishnu, I shall free the people from illusion by spreading the glories of the Lord throughout the land. And one of the fingers opened up again to its normal position. Second, to establish that there is no truth beyond Lord Vishnu, I shall write the Sri Bhasya, commentary on Vedanta Sutra. Another finger extended. So what else did he do? In order to show respect to the sage Prahlada, who has so wonderfully described the glories of the Lord in the Vishnu Purana, I shall name one learned Vaishnava after him. So he fulfilled those 3 purposes. One could say that the mandate from his spiritual master, or the predecessor spiritual master, Yamunacharya, unto him. And his life was the fulfillment of those. In his writings were abundant and very clear. My understanding is, it's not that he labeled his teachings Vishishta Dvaita, but later his teachings were labeled the Vishishta Dvaita. Advaita means non-dual, and Vishishta means attributes. So, in contrast to Shankaracharya that taught Shuddha Advaita, or absolute monism, he taught Vishishta, that everything is of the same absolute nature, and in the transcendental realm, everything has attributes. It's of a non-dual nature, but the attributes are real. Vishishta Advaita, or qualified monism. Because it's his appearance day, I was thinking we could just dedicate the class to him instead, but I think I'm going to go forward with Prahlad's teachings, because that was what I was asked to do. So let's do that. We offer our respects to Ramanujacharya in honor of his appearance day and all the service that he did for the Vaishnavas of his time and continuing on to the present time and going into the future, I'm sure. So the other part of what I wanted to do before we continued part 2 is to ask for some memory from any of you, one at a time. What were some of the points that were covered in part 1? What were some of the lessons or teachings of Prahlad Maharaj that we heard and that you remember from part 1? By the way, I'm going to do the same thing again this evening, so. Well, the first of the teachings was, there was 2 sections. One was his father, and then the next was Shanda and Amarka. And his father asked him, what's the best thing that you learned from your teachers? He didn't say Shandamarka, and Prahlad didn't say, this is what I learned from Narada Muni, but what was the best thing that he learned? There were two parts of the best thing that he learned.
Freedom from the conceptions of friend and enemy.
That comes later. That's not what he said to his father. What did he say to his father? Yes.
Griham andhakupam.
Say it again.
Griham andhakupam.
Griham andhakupam. What does that mean?
Dark well of existence.
Dark well of family life. That griha andhakupam. And what else did he say besides the dark well of family life? Yes. That comes up. It hasn't happened yet.
He said that one should give up family life and go to the forest.
Well, why should one do that? And why are we doing it? So what else did he say besides go to the forest and give up family life?
Because there is no happiness and there is distress.
Samudvigna. What does samudvigna mean? One becomes bewildered. Yeah, samudvigna. By asat grahat. Asat, impermanence, and absorption in the impermanent. So he's saying to his father, maybe I should go to the verse. He said to his father, I'll go to the verse because our memories aren't doing so well. Oops. There it is. Tat sadhu manye sura varya dehinam sada samudvigna diyam asatrahat. Then there was the other part. Hidvatma patam grihamanda kupam vanam. So samudvigna, full of anxieties, asatgrahat, we summarized, I and mind, but attached to the impermanent. Atmapatam, the place where there's no spiritual culture. Hitva atmapatam, where there's no spiritual culture, you leave that. Supposing there's spiritual culture, you're supposed to leave that? No. You cultivate, that's the proper purpose of grahastha ashram, where there's an ashram for spiritual culture. Here's the translation. This is the first important lesson. As far as I have learned from my spiritual master, any person who has accepted a temporary body, this is the asat grahat, and a temporary household life, is certainly embarrassed, samudvigna, by anxiety because of having fallen into a dark well where there is no water, but only suffering. And then the other parts. Such persons, they should go to Vrindavan. Give up that position and go to the forest. Take shelter of the personality of Godhead. So then there was some, his father didn't like that one. He's been spoiled. He told Chandramarka, straighten this boy out, protect him from those Vaishnavas. They shouldn't be polluted. And so they worked him over, but he was not interested. And they wanted to know, where'd you learn all these things? And then came the second lesson, was the big theme on friend and enemy. They spoke, you've been polluted by the enemy. How'd this happen? And Prahlad, several messages about friend and enemy. And, I heard about this. Now I'm seeing it. Look at this. Friend and enemy. And Prahlad doesn't see it that way. Okay, so let's go forward. And okay, there we go. Here's the next verse. Persons who always think in terms of enemy and friend, svapare, in terms of enemy and friend, are unable to ascertain the supersoul within themselves, Atma, a Bodhibhir. Not to speak of them, even such exalted persons as Lord Brahma, who are fully conversant with Vedic literature, are sometimes bewildered in following the principles of devotional service. Muyanti yat vartmani Veda Vadaha, Veda Vadino. The same Supreme Personality of Godhead who has created this situation has certainly given me intelligence to take the side of your so-called enemy. No thanks, I don't want to be part of your program, Shandanamarka. And that's why you're having a hard time training me up to become an Asura, because I'm protected by the personality of Godhead. And I don't see in terms of friend and enemy, although you're behaving as if I'm your enemy, and you're acting towards me as if you're my enemy, but I don't see friend's enemy. Prabhupada's purport, Prahlad Maharaj admitted frankly, my dear teachers, you wrongly think that Lord Vishnu is your enemy, but because he is favorable toward me, I understand that he is the friend of everyone. You may think that I have taken the side of your enemy, but factually, he has bestowed a great favor upon me. Nice way to reword their friend-enemy language. And then the next verse, he's likening his attraction for the personality of Godhead to be like iron filings attracted to a magnet. Oh, Brahmanas, as iron attracted by a magnetic stone moves automatically towards the magnet, my consciousness, having been changed by his will, is attracted by Lord Vishnu, who carries a disc in his hand. Thus, I have no independence. I can't help it. I'm just an iron filing attracted by the magnet or to the magnet, and it just happens. I'm not trying to do this. It just happens that way. Prabhupada's comment, for iron to be attracted by a magnet is natural. Similarly, all living entities to be attracted toward Krishna is natural. So the other is unnatural. Not being attracted to Krishna is unnatural, or the diseased condition. And he goes on, Krishna means he who attracts everyone and everything. Certainly in Vrindavan, but even outside of Vrindavan. The natural situation of everything in Vrindavan, the flowers and fruits in the gardens, are attracted. The water, the waves of the Jamuna are attracted, and the land, sky, trees, plants, animals, and all other living beings are attracted by Krishna. Well, he's all attractive. And then, supposing one doesn't have that attraction, there's another attraction, the material attraction. Just contrary to the affairs of Vrindavan is the material world, where no one is attracted by Krishna and everyone is attracted by Maya. Again, Prabhupada's comment, so this is the compare-contrast thing. This is Hiranyakasipu, he's the big Maya advocate. Hiranyakasipu, who was in the material world was attracted by women and money. That's what Hiranyakasipu means. Prahlad said, because of being unnaturally attracted by Krishna, unnaturally unattracted by Krishna, Hiranyakasipu therefore needed purification. And the agent of purification was being sent to him in the form of his son. Sometimes Hiranyakasipu has as a son Prahlad, and I was thinking like this from yesterday evening. Aniruddha is Vishnu Tattva, with the Usha and Aniruddha story. So how did Usha, because there's an eternal relationship between Aniruddha and Usha, how did Usha get born as the daughter of Banasura? Did you think that one? That would have been a much better question than the other questions. They're eternally associated. So it's the facilitation of a pastime, so that Aniruddha can do what Aniruddha did, and Krishna could do what Krishna did, and Lord Shiva can do what Lord Shiva did, and Banasura could do what Banasura did, and everyone could do everything according to the Leela Shakti, the plan of the Lord's pastimes. But, poor Usha getting born as the daughter of Banasura. Phew. Or Prahlad being born as the son of Hiranyakasipu. But Prahlad came for his purification. And Prabhupada writes, the ultimate purification. As soon as one is purified of material contamination and designations, he is again attracted by Krishna. So therefore, it's important for us to let go of designation. And, we have our standard understanding of what designation means, upadi, sarva upadi vinirmuktam. Then you practically anything that people speak about themselves or others is not who they are, but it's the covering. It's the designation. We accept their coverings, and we socially behave according to those coverings, but we don't identify while we're socially behaving with the covering. Or if one who does, that's illusion. And illusion fosters suffering. Ignorance fosters, ignorant activity fosters suffering. So we respect differences, and we most importantly respect the soul within. And easier said than done, but that's the teaching that's being given here. With this to an extreme, friend and enemy. I mean, where this is going is Hiranyakasipu orders that Prahlad should be killed because he's in the enemy camp. Phew. So going the other direction is one becomes free from that sense of designation. And when that sense of designation is reduced, then attraction for Krishna can increase. The bhakti process purifies the living entity of all unnatural attractions. As we're going along, keep on your radar screen or your notepad in your mind or something, how Prabhupada is giving us instructions to reach the platform of pure devotional service. And he's taking statements and subtle things and other things, and he's guiding his reader, his devotees, to pure devotional service, because that's what the Prahlad Maharaj story is about, pure devotional service. And we have to know what the pitfalls are and have to be willing to take the guidance from our founder Acharya and from Prahlad, whether he's speaking to Chandandamarka or Hiranyakasipu or his classmates, because that's coming up And there's a different response from each of those three. The boys are kind of innocent. They're kind of like, wow, this is interesting. And Kṛṣṇa and Amarka are afraid for their backside because Hiranyakasipu is going to smack us. And Hiranyakasipu is intolerant. And he wants his agents, Kṛṣṇa and Amarka, to do his bidding. And they're trying. But he's impervious to their ideas because he's like iron filings attracted to a magnet, and he can't help it. He's not attracted to the other. Prabhupada quotes Bhagavad Gita 7:28. Let's say the verse together so we're all awake and participating. Yesham tvantakatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvanvamoha nirmukta bhajante mam dridha vrata. So emphasis goes on dridha vrata. Great determination. Persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, whose sinful actions are completely eradicated and who are freed from the duality of delusion. Duality of delusion. Duality of delusion. What's the duality of delusion? Who would like to say what the duality of delusion is? Huh? Huh? Can you say a little bit more than that? Just expand on what's the duality of delusion mean?
In the previous verse, the Bhagavad Gita said, Icha dvesha samuttena dvandva mohena. So
that's the duality, the dvandva.
So the living entity leaves Krishna's associations in the spiritual, in the material realm. They experience desire and hate. And that desire and hate manifests so many other dualities in the experience.
Okay. So there's some conditions to becoming dridha vrata, fixed in determination. And this being freed from icha and dvesha, or the duality of delusion, is one of them. So if it's not icha and dvesha, when you see something in the world, you see another person, you see, someone is acting in a nice way, someone's acting in an inimical way, the friend and enemy behavior, then one can put them in a box, or give them a label, or have a signs of designation. But that's not the person. Some behavior may be bad, or inappropriate, or something, and you can identify what the something is. But you don't label it, or you don't label the person. The behavior is one thing, and the person is another thing. So, free from desire and hate, pious activities, free from sinful activities, completely eradicated, then the determination can take place. Supposing you're not completely free from sinful reaction, supposing you're not completely pious, close your eyes and imagine those two things. Now what? Then you practice. But the practice may be without this dridha vrata. But to get to the dridha vrata stage, then gradually, the purification gradually brings one to the stage where pious activities is the choice that you're making. That is, anukulyasya sankalpa, that which is favorable for pleasing Krishna, you do. And you leave aside the other things. And the attraction, repulsion, desire and hate, friend and enemy, those duality things subside. Then one can be fully determined in any circumstance. Nice teaching. So that's Bhagavad Gita's teaching, and Prahlad is presenting to his teachers. They didn't get back to Hiranyakasipu just yet. It's going to happen real soon. So Prabhupada's commentary still, becoming Krishna conscious. Everyone in this material world is contaminated by material desire, icha, Unless one is freed from all material desire, anyabhilasha to shunyam, one cannot be attracted to Krishna. So it's not, so it's not a 1 or a 0. Either you're 1 or you're 0. It's not like that. Proportionate to bhakti is a gradual and proportionate to bhakti, then the other desires subside and the greater happiness takes its place. So after hearing from Prahlad, because Prahlad was asked a question by his teachers, Shanda and Amarka tried their best to deprogram him. You've heard that term before. It's not a popular term anymore, but it was a popular term for a while. There were talk show interviews with that fellow, Ted Patrick. They've been hypnotized, brainwashed. So, what happened here? Okay. They tried brainwashing him. They tried intimidating him. It didn't work. But they didn't want to report that to Hiranyakasipu because they were afraid of him. So once again, sometime later, one day, he invited his nice little son to sit on his lap and tell him once again what he had studied from his teachers. My dear Prahlad, my dear son, O long-lived one, for so much time you have heard many things from your teachers. Now please repeat to me whatever you think is the best. Now comes the one that you got a little bit ahead of yourself, the 9 processes of devotional service. Prahlad Maharaj responded to the inquiry of his father with the instructions he had received from his spiritual master Narada while still within the womb of his mother. Shravanam kirtanam Vishno smaranam padasevanam archanam bandhanam dasyam sakyam atmanived. That's the best thing I've learned. What? Iti pungsarpita Vishno bhaktischain navalakshana kriyeta bhagavatyadha tan manye ditam uttamam. So there's the 9 processes, and there's images of persons who exemplify each of those 9 processes. So let's go to this nice chart. Who is the personification of the Shravanam process? Huh? Maharaj Parikshit. And the Kirtanam part. Okay. Shravanam Kirtanam. Now, Vishnu Smaranam, who is the perfection of Vishnu Smaranam, nobody other than Prahlad Maharaj himself, right? Yes? Vishnu Smaranam. And then Archanam? Prithu. Archanam, Bandhanam, Akrura. Which were the prayers that Akrura is known for having recited and thus achieved perfection? I used to misunderstand. I thought it was when he saw Krishna's 2 things. He was on the chariot heading for Vrindavan, and he was absorbed in thoughts of Krishna on all the way. Then when he saw the marks of Krishna's feet, he fell out of the chariot, rolled in the dust, and offered other prayers. But those weren't the prayers. The prayers were where? When? The prayers of Akrura. Yeah?
When he was taking Krishna Balaram to Mathura,
Yeah. Yeah.
He stopped to take a bath.
Yeah.
And he saw Krishna and Balaram manifest as Vishnu.
Yeah. Anantashesh.
And then he offered prayers.
Those are the prayers. Those are the prayers. Bandhanam, and then this one's easy. Dasyam, Hanuman. Sakyam,
Arjuna.
Arjuna. Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam. And I missed one. Which one did I miss? Padasevanam. Padasevanam?
Lakshmi Devi.
Lakshmi Devi. So those are the 9 processes. Hearing and chanting about the transcendental holy name, form, qualities, paraphernalia, and pastimes of the Lord Vishnu. Remembering them, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, offering the Lord respectful worship with 16 types of paraphernalia. That was an embellishment. Offering prayers to the Lord, becoming his servant, considering the Lord one's best friend, and surrendering everything unto him. Who was that? Surrendering everything unto him. Bali Maharaj. In other words, serving him with body, mind, and words. These 9 processes are accepted as pure devotional service. Then the other half, one who has dedicated his life to the service of Krishna through these 9 methods should be understood to be the most learned, for he has acquired complete knowledge. Now, this isn't really what Hiranyakasipu expected to hear from his son. He didn't react very nicely. Prabhupada makes a comment in his purport. A pure devotee is interested only in devotional service, not in material affairs. To execute devotional service, one should always engage in hearing and chanting about Krishna or Lord Vishnu. This is the symptom of pure devotional service. This is straight from his purport. Younger generation person. Do you recognize who this painting is of? That's Krishna. Very good. And the other person is a phantom. No. He's a sadhu of some kind. Who, I'll prod you a little bit. You probably know, he was from South India and he came to Vrindavan and he was very attracted to Krishna. He poked his eyes out, became blind, and lived for a long, long time, and he sang songs about Krishna who came to listen to hear him sing. His name starts with a B. No good, huh? Bilva Mangala? You've heard that name? No, you've heard the name. Bilva Mangala lived in Vrindavan for at least according to history, 400 years. Blind, singing, and Krishna loved his singing, and so he came and heard him singing. But Bilva Mangala couldn't see with his eyes because he was blind, but he understood Krishna was present, and they would have conversation. Very unusual, exalted personality, Bilva Mangala Thakur. So he enjoyed hearing and chanting. Iti pungsarpita. Pungsa means by all living entities. There are no distinctions permitting only a man or only a brahmana to offer devotional service to the Lord. And there's also the medium through which we are encouraged to hear, and that medium we're encouraged to hear from is from the spiritual master. Bhagavat Yada is the teaching that every bona fide spiritual master or genuine spiritual master gives, is we're to offer everything to Krishna. I mean, it's right, Bhagavad Gita, one who says differently is not a bona fide person. But one who is repeating that message, that's the spiritual master. Fruitive workers, this is a nice explanation, listen carefully. Fruitive workers first perform some pious activities and then formally or officially offer the results to Vishnu, because they don't want entanglement in reactions of their work. The real devotee, however, first offers his surrender to Krishna with his body, mind, and words, and then uses his body, mind, and words for the service of Krishna as Krishna desires. That's the distinction between bhakti and karma yoga. Should we do it again? Let's do it again. It comes up from time to time. So sometimes you'll be asked this question. This is a nice answer. What's the difference between karma yoga and bhakti yoga? And you can go, duh, I'm not sure. Because Prabhupada uses them interchangeably sometimes. Karma yoga is bhakti yoga is karma yoga. So I'm not really sure. There's a karma yoga is a subset of bhakti. What someone does in karma yoga is included in bhakti yoga. That's offering the results of your activities to Krishna. But the distinction, Bhaktivinoda Thakur uses this explanation, just like Jivan was seated on the stairs, and now his son is seated on the stairs. So if you're seated on stair number 4, you're not seated on stair number 5, or 6, or 7. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, someone may be designated as being on a certain rung of the yoga ladder if they don't move to the next rung of the yoga ladder. They just stay kind of stuck for some time and without any interest to go to the next rung on the yoga ladder. So those who are doing karma yoga and they're not seeing that offering the results unto Krishna as being a subset of bhakti, they just do what's written here. That is, their main business is they don't want a reaction to their work. And even, smart people, it's not just that they want a good reaction for good work. They don't want a reaction for work, good or bad reaction. They want freedom from reaction. They want liberation, and they see karma yoga as a means for that liberation. So karma kanda is, I do good stuff to get to the heavenly realm. Karma yoga is, I dedicate everything, good and the avoiding the bad, as an offering unto the Supreme, because I don't want reaction. I want freedom from reaction, bondage to the reactions of my work. So, fruitive workers that are engaged from fruitive work to karma yoga perform some pious activities and then formally or officially offer the results to Vishnu, because they want freedom from the bondage of their work. And there's benefit, for sure. The real devotee, however, first offers his surrender to Krishna, like I'm yours. My body is yours, my mind is yours, my words are yours, the soul is yours. Some of you might want to know, some of you may not be so interested either, but some of you might want to know what's inside the danda of a sannyasi for a Vaishnava, a Gaudiya Vaishnava sannyasi. And it's not, it says, we say, Tri Danda Sannyas, but there's 4. Okay. Now I've got your interest. The tall bamboo rods represent body, mind, and words dedicated to service of the Supreme Lord. And if you notice, at least for the Gaudiya Vaishnava sannyasis, a little bent piece towards the top. And then there's another rod that starts from that place and goes down, and that's the soul, represents the soul, dedicated to the service of the Supreme. So the statement that Prabhupada is making here in this purport, just show it on the screen. Real devotee first offers his surrender to Krishna, and then does the activity of the body, mind, and words. Because then the actions, body, mind, and words, actions, are the property of Krishna, because I've surrendered to Krishna. I belong to Krishna. The body belongs to Krishna. The mind belongs to Krishna. The words belong to Krishna. They're meant for Krishna. So it doesn't mean that you have to be a Tridandi sannyasi to be a bhakta, but it's the principle, for whatever the ashram might be, it's the principle of first is the dedication and then comes the activity. Not first comes the activity, now I want free from the bondage of the activity, so I offer the results to Krishna. Is it clear? Okay, good. Somebody's nodding yes. The rest of you are not sure, maybe. Okay. One should act for the satisfaction of Lord Vishnu, not for the satisfaction of his own senses. That is the meaning of the word adha, or directly. It's right within those 9 processes of bhakti in the second part of the verse. Next time you put a sign on the door that says, go to the garage. Okay. So directly, how do you do something directly? Well, we through the representative of Krishna, that's directly. But the distinction that Prabhupada is making here is directly means it's for the satisfaction of Vishnu exclusively, not the dovetail. What dovetail means, I like this, Krishna happens to like this, so I'll do this because I like it, and oh, by the way, Krishna likes it. That's the dovetail program. Something that's our nature, and so I do something that's my nature. It's okay to do, we should do things that are our nature, but because of the material conception, the seeing things separate from Krishna conception of life, the tendency is to see my satisfaction first, and then, oh, by the way, Krishna's satisfaction. So it's to turn it around the other way. Krishna's satisfaction, and then the medium is the representative of Krishna, spiritual master, etc. The medium is those personalities in our lives, and that's directly. But the focus should be, it's not of my interest. It's come up in the last 2 weeks, maybe 6 times. How do I make the distinction between something that's kind of like, it's comfortable me so I do it, and then it's something that's actually for the satisfaction of Krishna. So the answer is very simple. Who's at the center? Whose satisfaction is what's driving the behavior of the speech or the social interaction? Whose pleasure is to be met? Who's at the center? And largely we're at the center because that's our program. We're strongly covered by false ego. I had some exchange yesterday with Krishna Lila. Many of you know Krishna Lila. And because I found from somebody that attended a seminar that she had just conducted in New Vrindavan, it was, I don't know how it was advertised, but it ended up, she described the essence of the seminar was to help people understand how their false ego interferes with social interactions and brings stress or worse, trauma and, bad negative emotions, etc. If false ego is driving our social interactions, and then so we're not satisfied, others aren't satisfied, and what's wrong? I'm chanting my japa. The driver is the false ego. It's not yet Krishna's at the center. And then people have, they're bent in different shapes, but out of shape, because false ego is at the driver's seat, driving our everything. So that's a problem. I mean, I'm bringing this up because it was an exchange yesterday, but it also connects immediately with this conversation between Prahlad Maharaj and Hiranyakasipu and Prabhupada's commentary. We're meant by who are we? We're living entities, parts of Krishna, meant to please Krishna. We're meant to serve Krishna. That's who we are. And if we don't act according to who we are, we have a problem. And there can be many problems. Too many problems. But the root behind the problem is not it's so simple, but false ego just obscures. They're simple. And so we can't see. And we experience unhappiness and wonder why that's going on. We're not making much spiritual progress and wonder why that's going on. It's our dear friend, false ego. Whoop, whoop, whoop. There we go. There's the last. Gopal Tapani Upanishad says that the word bhakti means engagement in the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, not of anyone else. And by the way, there's only one more slide and we're done. Yay. But, this is different. There's so many different ways from Scripture to say the same thing. Anyabhilasha Shunyam Jnana Karmadya Navratam Anukulyena Kṛṣṇa Nushilanam. That's one way to say it. Or Vyavasayatmika Buddhi Ekeha Kurunandana. That's another way to say it. Ekeha Kurunandana. Ekeha. Undivided devotional service. Here it is again. Gopal Tapani Upanishad. Bhakti means Krishna and not anyone else. To say Krishna and not anyone else doesn't mean I don't care about you because you're not Krishna. But the satisfaction of anyone else and everyone else and everything else is the satisfaction of Krishna. So our behavior should be pleasing to Krishna or interacting with others so that Krishna is pleased. Bhakti is the cure. And there's the varieties of disease. And that's the straight up conversation with Hiranyakasipu. And he's teaching even to Hiranyakasipu the way of pure devotional service, as he's teaching to Shanda and Mark, as he's teaching to his classmates, as he's teaching to us. And the proper guru or acharya commentator is simply representing his teachings, the teachings of pure devotional service. Last slide. If a devotee performs only one of these 9 without deviation, he can attain the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And, very interesting way to end, when a devotee executes any one of the 9 processes, Navalakshana, this is sufficient. The other 8 processes are included. You ever considered like that before? Now, first and foremost is the Shravanam, and of course Shravanam and Kirtanam, but Shravanam, it starts with Shravanam. And then there's a qualitative way of doing Shravanam. And then from that qualitative Shravanam, everything else blossoms. So by all means, proper Shravanam. And then the others will unfold as according to our nature. Some like deity worship more than others. Some like other forms of devotional service than others. That's just fine. But everyone should be engaged in the Shravanam process. And by that one Shravanam process, everything is fulfilled. We're getting lessons in pure devotional service from our founder Acharya, and some devotees in this room wanted to hear it again, so we're doing it again. And I'm liking it again. Let's see if there's some discussion.
Guru Maharaj, this topic is so deep, and every time I hear it, it's like it brings so much instruction and edifying messages. My question is around the relation between growth of bhakti within an individual versus, or simultaneously, being sensitive to the false ego sensibilities of another person. I may be getting ahead of myself a little bit here, but when we observe and study Prahlad Maharaj's response to Hiranyakasipu, when he asked for the third time, where did you learn this from? We're coming up really soon. Prahlad Maharaj doesn't mince his words. Matirna Krishna Parata Svatova. The way he speaks to his father, gets him, it doesn't help soothe the situation, rather it inflames the situation. A untrained eye will look at that and say, Prahlad is not being sensitive to his father, At the same time, no question, Prahlad's devotional caliber is off the charts. So, and even in the community here, we might have perhaps some harsh exchanges, and then perhaps one may judge another person by their, by the harshness to say how a devotee is, when in reality those may not be, they may not be connected. I don't know if my question is clear.
What's this sign up here? Just noticed.
I know.
I hear a baby crying. It's welcome, baby.
4 years back.
Oh, 4 years ago, sign? Okay. And just as I was asking it, the baby was crying. Okay, but then focus back on the topic. There's several parts to your question. There's several parts of my response to your question. And someone might say, he's insensitive. You use the word harsh. He's not speaking harsh. He's just speaking straight. He's not speaking harsh. He didn't feel intimidated by his father. He doesn't feel anger towards his father. Even his father, what he did before, what he's going to do to him, he didn't hold anything against his father. He wasn't seeing friend and enemy. He was just seeing. So he's not in duality. Now, how does someone who's not in duality speak? And there's diversity in those who are not in duality and how they speak. Someone may be this, someone may be that, someone may be the other thing. For example, Prabhupada said, I'm 90% more lenient than my Guru Maharaj. And his Guru Maharaj was known as Nrsinga Guru, where he would walk around. People would run and hide because he would confront them if they were doing something that shouldn't be done, or something. Not like he was on a campaign to bash people, but he didn't leave uncleanliness as he was moving about. He was his nature and his gift to bring things to a position of clean and pure. And he would speak very straight. And that intimidated some people. So someone could say, a professional could say, he wasn't a very nice man, or something like that. He was very sensitive to the people that he would try to clean up. So, he was not coming from a place of conditioning. He was coming from a place of transcendence. And he had his nature, and he was acting according to his nature, and it was effective. That is to say, many persons became spiritually elevated. And then one who was 90% more lenient than his spiritual master was very effective in bringing people to. It's a little bit like, it's not the same, but it's a little bit like Mukunda's question yesterday about Indra's, his criterion for people being part of this 24-hour kirtan program. They had to match a certain something. And then there's another way. So on this note, it's a similar response that I gave to Mukunda. And there's diversity. And let us not use yardsticks that may be applicable to somebody who's a conditioned soul to somebody who's not. The place that Bhaktisiddhanta was coming from, the place that Prahlad Maharaj is coming from, is wishing the elevation and purification. And he spoke a little differently, but not in principle differently, to his classmates, to his teachers, and to Hiranyakasipu. But he wanted his elevation. That was, and the way of going about it had his personality, his style, his inspired by the super soul within the heart, not by modes of nature or insensitivity or something. No material yardsticks governing such a person. So someone that is governed by the modes of nature, and they hold their own yardsticks to measure things. In the end, you judge by the result. And Hiranyakasipu was delivered. We don't know what happened to Chandramarka. But they definitely got benefit by his association. And it was antiseptic. They didn't like it, but it was antiseptic. The toxicity was sterilized. So he had a certain nature, he had a certain mission, he had a certain inspiration from the Lord of his heart, and he received protection in doing so. Now, then comes, how do we apply this to ourselves? The application part. We don't imitate a perfected soul. I mean, we must not imitate a perfected soul. What must we do? We must follow sadhana bhakti as Rupa Goswami has given it to us, to the best of our capacity, and under the guidance of those who are guiding us in our spiritual lives. You want to say something more about it? You're holding the microphone in such a way that I think you want to say something more about it.
No, Maharaj. I'm good for now. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Oh, we down behind the pillar here.
Guru Maharaj, I was going to ask the application part for as a follow-up to Prabhu's question, but you already answered. Yeah, last evening's discussion also, I've been thinking about this, Guru Maharaj. We hear Srimad Bhagavatam and we consider it as the ideal path that we need to follow. But yet, looks like there are some where we just need to hear and understand Supreme Personality of Godhead or the pure devotees act in such a way. We just feel inspired and maybe awe, but we cannot really follow that. Not just imitation, but even cultivation.
Whoa, you say can't. Could you explain can't? We can't cultivate. Could you explain that statement? You feel stuck. That means you can't.
Not in that sense, Guru Maharaj, but let's say for this example, I was thinking of Vidura also, or Prahlad Maharaj, the way they are speaking. Obviously, we don't want to go in that path. Of course, if Krishna inspires, that's a different situation. But at least when we are cultivating, I'm thinking of this Gita values, being dear to everyone, considering everyone as dear. That's a quality we want to cultivate.
How does that get applied? Feeling yourself dear, you may speak strongly because you feel dear to someone. It's not because you feel dear to someone, you'll never speak strongly, because you don't do that when you feel dear to someone. You may, then there's other considerations. Do you have that relationship of teacher to student or parent to child or something, superior to subordinate? Is that relationship accepted on the other side? And then you could, maybe even should speak strongly, depending upon the circumstance. Don't be bound by, convention. Be bound by love. And when there's love, then convention may be appropriate, may not be appropriate. Depends. Is that responsive to your question?
I have
Okay.
I have another question, Guru Maharaj. As we are hearing that statement about using our body, words, and mind, the difference between karma yoga and bhakti yoga. So as we start practicing bhakti, we think we are practicing bhakti.
But
As you were mentioning about Krishna Lila Mataji's, that understanding that false ego is getting into the thing, I'm realizing the need for introspection in the path of bhakti.
absolutely.
So we see some devotees, just being so carried away by, just the externalities of it. What is that we can do individually and collectively so that we can go more on to that introspective journey?
The best way to teach is by example, and then those who teach by example, they'll have the intelligence. Krishna, as the super soul, will give them the intelligence in different circumstances how to you be in service to another person. Yeah, I'm a believer in education, training and education, and so, collectively, more training and education. Now, if you do more training and education, it doesn't mean that everyone's going to get trained and educated. But at least the opportunity is there, as opposed to if it's not there. So setting an example, that means the brahmanas have to be example-setting persons, not just know and do something else, and teach and do something else, but they have to be the example-setting persons. So qualified brahmanas who have an understanding of what the need. I mean, it's and then different persons have to, like just taking Krishna Lila as an example. She has a certain gift. And, I don't know too many people that could do what she does. I would guess, most persons that do what she does would just be overwhelmed with the trauma of other people and download all the trauma of other people and just carry it, a wheelbarrow full of trauma in her heart because she cares. She's a very loving person. And there's this trauma and that trauma. She was listing some of the things that came up. This and that and the other thing. And people are carrying that stuff, and she cares about people carrying that stuff. So it's not easy, but she's gifted. So what about the rest of us? That may not be our calling or our gift or something. But, so whatever it is that we have an ability, capacity towards, let it be guided by Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, and share with, training in how to conduct ourselves in such a way that it's less ego-centered and more Vaishnava service, exactly what Prahlad is saying, service to others, with Krishna as being the one who we're trying to please and satisfy. So, living a bhakti life, training and education, how to live a bhakti life, and letting it be clear, this is not so, Krishna-centered, and how to work towards Krishna-centered existence ourselves and social interactions. I'm sure you remember. I remember, and don't have a good memory, and you have a good memory. We had some here in Naperville. We had something. It just came up. Some discussion about blind spots. Remember that discussion? And then I was asking for some follow through from people, and some did it, and some kind of let the ball drop. But that's a particular kind of way that we can help one another, as long as there's trust and trustworthiness. That someone can help you see where your blind spots are. Not out of fault finding, but out of caring, and so it takes a lot of refinement, that from introspection and from others who know us better than we know ourselves, at least in ways that we don't know ourselves because we have our blind spots, and to help us see things that we don't see on our own, and then help us to work through those things so we get to the other side of those things. A community that's dedicated in that way, then that's a good community. And community isn't dedicated that way, it goes haywire. Somehow or another, just a little side comment, somehow or another, by Prabhupada's presence, he was able to gather together people that had not a lot of training and education, not a lot of refinement in culture, big false egos, and lots of sense of entitlement because they were doing big service. And somehow he managed the movement to go forward progressively. Now, in his physical absence, his teachings are there in the form of his books, and his example is there in the form of leading disciples who live according to those principles of those books. And there's going to be a big wave of some of those people, Prabhupada's disciple people, being no longer with us. In anticipation of that, I strongly recommend those of you who are serious about your spiritual life, take that association, bring it inside your heart, try to understand as best you can, and exemplify what you've learned from Prabhupada's books and those senior devotees that exemplify those books. And those that do that are going to carry the movement forward, and those that don't do that are going to be part of the problem. Just speaking straight. And that's a concern that I have. Probably a concern that some of the other people in the room have. and I'm about to step on a soapbox and say a bunch of stuff, I think I'll refrain. It's a concern. What Prabhupada started should continue with purity, and if there isn't the effort towards purity, something will continue, but it's not going to be what Prabhupada started. Diversity is fine, and chaos isn't. Diversity where there's unity, that's fine. Diversity where there's no unity, it's chaos. And that's a worry. Diversity is fine. Purity is the force. So how to get the purity? Someone else? Arudha, you're waving your hand. You have something going on over there. Here she comes back to Mike.
Thinking about the aspects,
You got to press that little button, and then it'll work. Give it to a teenager, and the teenager will show you how to work it. There we go. Thank you.
I was just contemplating on the fact that you said about surrender. Bhakti yoga means surrender, and then of the mind, body, and words, and then using the mind, body, and words in service of Krishna was such a nice, wonderful explanation.
That's Prabhupada, not me.
Yes.
But thank you.
Yeah, and so how a sannyasi represents that, and and surrender, as explained by acharyas, means to remember that how Krishna is the ultimate protector, and but we come to that point only when we use our body, mind, and words to that. I was just thinking if you would like to elaborate more on that, if you can. Yeah.
I'm not sure. It's easy to talk, but I'm not sure. I want to be responsive to what you're saying. You're speaking about the process of surrender, and you're in the process of surrender. One of the limbs of surrender is Krishna is my maintainer. So I don't have to go out of my way in false ego thinking I'm the maintainer. I just have to be engaged in Krishna's service, and that dedication is a symptom of my surrender. That's what you're saying. You want me to hear more about this? Did I get it right?
I want to hear more about the mood of a sannyasi.
The mode of a sannyasi, okay. My understanding of, just to be, because I said it before, I'll say it again, a little differently, but same that I said before. Body, mind, and words, and the soul, that fourth rod in the sannyas danda, is meant for everybody. Now, in the sannyas ashram, it's where the ashram itself, the place of spiritual cultivation, is singular. However, when for, let's say, a student, brahmachari, or a grahasta, or vanaprastha, the principle doesn't change, just the externals take a different shape, but the principle doesn't change. That because the principle is the principle of devotional service. And the principle of devotional service, you repeated what Prabhupada had written. First comes the dedication of body, mind, and words. So if you're going to be a good householder, the life of a good householder is Prabhupada's words, grahasta sannyas. That is, my home is for Krishna, my bank balance is for Krishna, my social interactions are for Krishna, my children are for Krishna, what I do is for Krishna. Now, I may have a home that has my name on the title. I may have a bank account that has my name on the bank account. It's not just, the organization's name on the property. But the consciousness is for Krishna. And then the shape, the shape, the garment covering that bhakti is going to be a little different according to ashram and personality as well. But it's the same principle. And the goal is not just to become a sannyasi, the goal is to become Krishna conscious. And the principles of Krishna consciousness is that surrender and dedication, that Krishna is to be pleased. And then being introspecting and being a little realistic about my nature is more like this than like that. And so you do that which is consistent with what your nature is more like this than like that. And at the same time, next step. Let me maintain this for some time and consider as I'm maintaining this, what's the next step? And when the time is right, you take the next step. Yeah. Himangi wants to add something to this.
I just had an appreciation when you showed Bilva Mangala Thakur's that like Krishna came to hear him even though he was blind. And it just struck to me when you was talking about him that when he was directed by the prostitute that, if he had the same kind of attraction for Krishna, how wonderful it would be. And that starts his process and he starts going to Vrindavan, but again, he gets distracted.
Yes.
And when that realization comes, he very dramatically blinds himself. And I was thinking, as a person who is practicing devotion, what happens is something similar, that there is this desire to surrender and, we are on the path. But after some time, the determination weakens or whatever, and the distraction actually becomes very big. And I was thinking sometimes we, not literally in that sense, but one has to have that kind of very deep determination and then have to cut the knot not wishing that slowly it will go, but sometimes that kind of very dramatic step needs to be taken to, to surrender. I was just appreciating that it takes a lot of... I was thinking, what was that about Bilva Mangal Thakur at that point? Now a question is coming to my mind is that he took that very dramatic stand and then he poked his eyes, and that's when his devotion went deeper. I hope I was able to articulate what I was feeling.
The application, what I'm getting is, are there times when we should not just do the incremental, but we should do the dramatic or drastic or giant step that's irreversible? Should we consider that's maybe appropriate for us in our devotional service? And how do you decide that? That's kind of what you're asking. Complacency is an obstacle to incrementalism. I could become, that is to say, I'm many of you have heard me say many times, I believe, I try to follow Bhaktivinoda Thakur's words when he says progress is a series of small steps in the right direction. And people that try to make big steps and can't sustain the big steps, they often feel a lot of negative emotion about, oh, I couldn't do it. I met, in the course of this past week's travel, some persons that said, that's my biggest obstacle. I feel like I'm a failure. I feel like I'm a failure because I set these goals for myself and then I don't meet them. Then I feel like not only didn't meet them, but I'm just, that's me, I'm a failure. So that's detrimental. Not feeling I'm a failure isn't helpful. So the question is then, again, are there times when one should be very firm and take a very drastic, strong step in the right direction? And it's hard to decide when that should be done. Should it be done? Well, I know I did it. I mean, my parents thought something. And it wasn't just what they thought. It wasn't just like, youthful, but I just like dropped everything, and it was anyway. So there's a time for it, and when is the right time for it? I don't know if there's a short answer, short or simple answer. Inspiration, and it's something that's sustainable. When you do something that's strong, and it's a little bit drastic, but it's sustainable. That means that there has to be something deep enough within the heart that makes that drastic sustainable. And there's an obstacle that's keeping me between that which is sustainable and doing what I should be doing. And so you may need to take a big step. And here's another one. That's not directly your question, but sometimes Krishna makes an arrangement that's really drastic. And it's like, what? And it's not, it's nothing you can do about it, because it's Krishna did it. It's not redoable. It's done. So now what? So, then it may come to the point where Krishna wanted this drastic. And so I have to accept Krishna's plan. So whether we make the plan or it's Krishna's plan, it does something drastic. Something that's sustainable. So a key to my response to your question is, when the relationship with Krishna becomes strong enough, desiring that Krishna connection becomes strong enough, then that's the time that something drastic becomes sustainable, because that's going to keep me going. That aspiration for Krishna connection, then you just stay with it. Just stay with it. It's, decision making in life is a little bit like this. I'm remembering a discussion I had with somebody so many years ago. He was asking, how am I going to know that she's going to be faithful? A man considering marrying a woman, how do I know she's going to be faithful? Because something. I said, well, if you have a crystal ball, then you can know, but otherwise you can't know. But there's some pattern, and you can see the pattern, and you see the character, and then you have to move. You can just be on the fence forever and never decide. Or another conversation, someone that's been practicing Krishna consciousness for 15 years. How do I know that I'll be able to maintain my vows after I take initiation? I said, that's really a good consideration, that you're an honest person like that, and you see some people don't. But that you've been keeping your vows for 15 years is a good indication. Now, is it possible to become complacent? Yes. So anyway, this is where the introspection comes, and what's the importance to such a person, you or someone's going to make a decision about something that's a little on the extreme side. How important is my relationship with Krishna? And it can become, that idea can be warm today and cold tomorrow. But that's what's going to sustain something that's done in a drastic way. And otherwise, the incremental method is safer. And then this also has at risk complacency for the incremental people. I'm okay. Everything's okay. And I'm an incremental person, so I'm just going to wait a while before the next increment. Like Bhaktivinoda Thakur, how dynamic was he? Gosh. Incrementalist, but extreme all at the same time, because his connection with Krishna was so important to him. That's where our attention should go. your sankalpa. What is really important to you? Anything else, anybody? Okay, we're done. Thank you very much, Srila Prabhupada Ki. Oh,
You had requested one of the youth to memorize a verse.
yeah, where is he over here? Did you remember the verse? Yes? Are you ready? How loud can you be? We're going to give you the microphone in case you're not so loud. Slowly, please.
Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivisto mata smritir jnanam apohanam cha vedasya sarver ahameva vedyo vedanta krit veda videva chaham.
Very good. Thank you for taking the commitment seriously. Now, should I ask you, do you know the translation? Not yet. Not fully. How about sometime tomorrow? We'll ask you tomorrow. This time tomorrow.
Sure, Maharaj.
Very good. Here's something for you. Bhakti Siddhanta, let's see if my memory is working. Bhakti Siddhanta had memorized the entire Bhagavad Gita, all 700 verses, by the time he was how many years old? 7 years old. And he could explain every verse of the 700 verses for at least 10 minutes when he was 7 years old. Not just with the slok, the Sanskrit, and, I guess the Bengali meaning, but explanation. But, we start somewhere. Prabhupada, don't mind. Prabhupada, whenever he had a way, when somebody would do something that was very nice, he would congratulate them and then give them the next assignment. Here's an example. Once upon a time, we didn't have many books. We had the main publication we had was Back to Godhead magazine. And he demanded, he instructed that the publication per month, because it was a monthly magazine at that time, was so many, whatever it was, 25,000 magazines to be distributed through North America. And then Boston Temple this many, because I was in the Boston Temple, I knew what our assignment was. Los Angeles, New York, and Montreal. Those are the four main. So they did it, 25. He said, very good. Next month, 50,000. And we're like, what? And we did it. And then we did the 50, and then it became whatever the next one was. So he was encouraging, but he also, it wasn't like belittling what we did. It was encouraging us now go the next step. You get the idea?
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay. So just like you did. And just in 24 hours, look at this.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay. Something else? Srila Prabhupada Ki? Okay.